Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunaminitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Benedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Vande Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kapatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we're going to continue hearing glorification of Srila Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Prabhupada. Yesterday we kind of had an overview and we referenced things that we had read in two books. One beautiful book called The Mission by Swami Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, very wonderful devotee, and successor Acharya to Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, and another book by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, kind of chronicling the preaching activities of Saraswati Prabhupada. Touched on that some, not so much. And different things we'd heard. But today I wanted to read specifically from a lecture that was given in 2023 in Germany. Let's see, where are we here? No, that's not that. No. It's disappeared. Where is that? And 2003 in February, and it was on the appearance day. Oh no, disappearance day. So it's by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. A beautiful lecture, very touching on all important points. I looked at it and thought, oh yeah, this would be a wonderful, wonderful thing to read and discuss. So without further ado, he begins and he says, and so we offer obeisances too. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. Yeah. So he begins by saying, today is a very auspicious day. It is the holy, it is Appearance Day. It says in the introduction, Disappearance Day. So they posted this lecture on his Disappearance Day, but it's a lecture about his appearance. And actually, on both these days, in one sense, they're non-different because we're glorifying these great personalities. They have chosen these days specifically. The Disappearance Day, sometimes when you compare the two, on the Appearance Day, this great personality has come to the world, but nothing is manifested yet. It's all in the future, a mission waiting to unfold, right? But on the Disappearance Day, all the pastimes, all the teachings, all the magnificent contributions have been given, and so there's more to reflect on. Of course, in our instance, even on the Disappearance Day, all of that has already happened, but that's just one way of looking at it. Anyway, he goes on to say, Srila Narayana Maharaj says, if this Mahapurush, which means great self-realized soul, had not descended in this world, no one would have known the meaning of pure bhakti. No one would have known the identity of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, the book Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, or the books and glories of the Goswamis. Why? Because our line is maintained and carried intact through Guru Parampara. It's a Bhagavad Parampara. It's not always by direct initiation, but those who take shiksha and closely follow the teachings of previous acharyas. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur revived all of this through his, he appeared specifically for his own role, and he wrote all these extraordinary literatures and did so much foundational preaching. But without that next link, then what he had come to give would not have been carried on. It would not, especially in the climate in India at that time. So the acharya, guru, they have the responsibility to carry on the teachings of the previous line and acharyas, but also glorify and reveal to the world the glories of their own guru. Right? That's very important. We need to understand the lives and teachings by example of these great souls, by example and by their literary contributions. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Prabhupada did that. So he says, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur gave us two jewels. The first one being the holy birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He manifested Goradam. Before him, no one knew where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken birth. No one knew where Sridham Mayapur was actually located. Right? There was a lot of controversy. Many people thought it was across the river in modern-day Navadvip. Right? Secondly, he gave the jewel of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, who preached throughout the world and universe the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the Rupanuga Vichar Dhara, in other words, the conceptions of the disciplic line of Srila Rupa Goswami, the current, and the glories of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Before the birth of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami and Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and after the disappearance, and after the disappearance, it must mean of Thakur, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Shyamananda Prabhu, Srinivasacharya, and especially Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Baladev Vidyabhusan, pure bhakti was covered. The Sahaja ideas were spread throughout Sri Brajadam and Sri Navadvip Dham. Their influence prevailed, and there were hardly any real Vaishnavas. So he's saying here, essentially, that Srila Rupa Goswami and the six Goswamis carefully elucidated the teachings of Mahaprabhu in various literatures and by their own example and by founding different temples and mats. And then their successors, Sri Shyamananda Prabhu, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, they were the first persons who, within our line, that took these teachings, not only the literatures, but went out in an evangelical way and began to inform the world of the conceptions that Mahaprabhu had come to deliver. And they established that culture in many, many places, in Bengal, in Assam, in Orissa, right? So, following them, most prominent was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and from him, Srila Baladev Vidyabhusan, and pure bhakti was clearly established. There were some controversies and some debates, but they established it and continued it very strongly. But then after Baladev Vidyabhusan, the influence of Apasiddhantas and Sahajas began to be seen everywhere. And there were few pure practitioners. These were generally people who had taken Babaji Vesh and were not actively preaching, but were maintaining the conceptions, having heard them, having practiced them. And chief among those was Jagannath Das Babaji, who Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur took as his Shiksha Guru, right? But mostly, the idea of Gaudiya Vaishnavism had degraded in the minds of the public. In the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his philosophy, and his prema dharma, the Sahajas were degraded in character and were most sinful. To live with another man's widow, to dance and sing with them, and to smoke cigarettes and drink wine with them, this was their idea of Parakya and Vaishnava Dharma. Because of their influence, none of the learned and aristocratic persons even wanted to hear the name Gaudiya Vaishnava, what to speak of follow them. They hated Gaudiya Vaishnavas, right, because they took the idea of Parakya and they practiced it on the mundane plane, where it's most abominable. Clearly, this was not the example of Mahaprabhu or his followers, but this is what Gaudiya Vaishnavism had become in the minds of the public. In the public, there are many still dharmic people who saw this as very terrible. So, he goes on to say that there are 11 main Sahaja groups like Gauranagari, Saki Beki, Aul, Baul, and so on. In India, their main function was widow bhajan, right? Chanting and associating with ladies whose husbands had died, some young, some old. And they maintained their lives by doing professional kirtans during funeral processions. After following a dead body and singing, they would receive a donation from the deceased relatives. True Vaishnava Dharma is completely pure, but all aristocratic persons began to hate it and were thus in danger. So kirtan just became a profession, a ritualistic ceremony that they were paid for. Srila Prabhupada warned us about that, having been instructed in these conceptions by his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Prabhupada, right? Kirtan and recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam should never be done for collecting money as a living, right? Then the motive for speaking becomes impure, and the intentions and mental impurity of the reciter afflict the listeners as well. And the actual benefit of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is not there. It's not there. That doesn't mean that you can't give Bhagavad Saptaha recitations of Srimad Bhagavatam, and people might give donations for that, but that should not be your intent, or that should not be the requirement also, that you need tickets to get into this, right? And you have to pay to hear this. At that time, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Prabhupada appeared in Sri Jagannath Dham as the son of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. He was born with many symptoms of a Mahapurush, such as natural tilak marks on his body and the impressions of Kantimala on his neck. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur told his wife, Bhagavati Devi, he is not an ordinary boy. No ordinary boy can have these natural tilak, Kantimala, and other signs. He has taken birth in Jagannath Puri, and also I have prayed to Bimala Devi, the consort of Lord Jagannath. He has come by her mercy. The Thakur thus gave his boy the name Bimala Prasad. Prasad means mercy. So, after 6 months, the baby became qualified to have his Anaprasana Mahotsava, the grain ceremony, right, for the first time. At the same time, the Jagannath Chariot Festival was taking place. The 3 carts carrying Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra were in procession and had stopped in front of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur's house for 3 days. The Thakur was the manager of the entire festival. Therefore, without any problems or obstacle, he took his son upon the chariot and placed him in front of Jagannath Dev. he took some prasadam from there and placed in the mouth of Bimala Prasad. And the flower garland from the neck of Lord Jagannath dropped on the baby's head. It is a very good sign when the deity's garland falls in this way, for it means the recipient is being blessed by the mercy of Lord Jagannath, Sri Govindadev, Sri Gopinath, or any other deity. This has also happened to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Thus, Bimala Prasad's Annaprasan Mahotsava was observed. Right. Very beautiful, important understanding. Right? And that place where that happened is now the mutt of the successors of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaja. He acquired that place at the request of all of his godbrothers in the 70s. That land, with great difficulty, acquired the land and very arduously raised funds for the construction. And now there's a very beautiful temple. We've stayed there for many days during Purushottam month before. Very hospitable devotees. So gradually, he began to grow up. After some time, when he became a boy of 5 years, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur himself gave him Harinam and the Archan mantra for the worship of Lord Kurmadev. I believe that Kurma deity was found, it's mentioned in another place, when they were building the house in Calcutta. And when they were excavating, the deity was there. So, and they brought that with them. So gradually, and maintained the worship. Gradually, he began to grow up. Oh, no, I read that. Okay. He began to learn many things. He was always with Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, carrying his father's Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Ujjvala Nilamani, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other books on his own head as he accompanied him to various places for preaching or giving classes. From a young age, he was doing this. But he was so precocious intellectually that even at a very young age, he was quite capable of sitting patiently, listening, and understanding and absorbing the deep meaning in the lectures of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Right? So, thus from the very beginning of his life, very good samskars came to him. This, of course, was his Narvat Leela, human-like pastimes, because he was actually the eternal associate of Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitayaya, very near and dear to Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Srimati Radhika. Yeah. So we have that mantra, Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripadaya, right? Very dear servant of Sri Varshabhanavi Devi, the daughter of Vrishabhanu Maharaj, Srimati Radhika herself. So, in his pranam mantra, he is referred to as Krishna Prashtaya. Krishna has so much love and affection for the Manjaris. So, Srila Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada is also near and dear to him. Right, this is not like the mundane conception where they have, the Manjaris are personal servants to Srimati Radhika. And they are kamatmika in the sense that they are in Shringar Ras. In other words, their intent is to satisfy Krishna in that way, in loving dealings, but their role is special. They don't directly associate. There are two kinds of gopis, those who are sambhog ichamai, and those who are tadbhav ichamai. Sambhog ichamai means those gopis who are personal lovers of Sri Krishna. Even Radhika's friends like Lalita and Vishaka Devi and Champakalata, Tungavidya, Rangadevi, right? They are sambhog. They're very dear to Srimati Radhika. They're a little bit more favorably inclined to Radhika than to Krishna even, and they take greater pleasure seeing Krishna with Radhika than they would themselves. So not her competitors. But Radhika also, they're her expansions, her Kaya Vyuha, and in order to give Krishna the fullest and broadest pleasure, Radhika desires that he be with them as well. Right? But the manjaris, they are tatadbhav ichamai. They don't enjoy with Krishna directly. They have Krishna's desires fulfilled by assisting Radhika, his topmost beloved. And they do services that none of the other gopis can do, because in the intimate dealings of Radha and Krishna, if the other gopis were there, it might create some even jealousy. Transcendental, but a slight disturbance. So they are always the assistants. And sometimes it appears that Krishna wants to be with them. It's a lila. And they will object, and they'll pray to Radhika, oh, no, no, no. I only want to serve you. So he's one of these dear and special manjaris, Nayana Manjari, the ray of the beauty of Srimati Radhika's own eyes. Right? And so Krishna has so much love and affection for the manjaris. Why? Because they assist his most dear Radhika, and they have a special love in their heart for Radhika. They are completely attuned to her desires, her manubhishta, and whatever pleasure and happiness she feels in serving Krishna, they also feel. Whatever symptoms that Radhika experiences, trembling, changing of color, anything, they also experience. Just like if a flower has a little manjari coming out of it, if the flower is stirred by the breeze, the manjari reflects that and is also stirring in the same way as the flower. Or the creeper, which the flower rests upon, is blowing in the breeze. The manjari also. So this is the condition of the manjari. So Krishna loves these manjaris because they love his Radhika so much. So anyone who loves and serves Radhika is going to capture the affection of Krishna, right? And because they have this such a deep connection with Radhika, just by seeing them, like Rupa Manjari, he one time, embraced Rupa Manjari. But for what? To taste her love and her affection for Radha. It's a special kind of connection. Krishna loves them so much. And because they can give him access to Radhika. Because they're such intimate servants, they're like gatekeepers. If they won't let Krishna in the kunja, he can't get in. So he's always trying to please and serve these. And topmost among them, one of the very topmost, is Sri Nayana Manjari, right? Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayata, Srila Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Prabhupada. The word Gauravani Sri Murti is also present in his pranam mantra. This adjective has been used also in the pranam mantra of Parama Pujapad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, our Srila Prabhupada. Gauravani Sri Murti, right? Because his is Sri Gauravani Pracharine, right? And we must go deep to uncover its meaning. Gauravani refers to that which Gaura, Sachinandana Gaurahari, preached, and that which he inspired in the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami, the glorification of the mood of the gopis and Srimati Radhika. Sri Gaurachandra said, O Nityananda, O Haridas Prabhu, you should go door to door and preach, Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Karo Krishna. Chant Sri Krishna's name, worship him, and serve him. This is Gauravani. Right? So it's through the multiple subdivisions of Gauravani. But the general glorification of the holy name, this is the process for deliverance in this age of Kali, for anyone, in any sampradaya, in any mood, in any rasa, whoever is your Ishtadev. If you're a worshiper of Lord Ram, Lord Narayan, Krishna and Dwarka, chanting the holy name, but especially chanting the name of Krishna in Vrindavan, Shama Sundar, Nanda Nandan, Jashoda Nandan, that name also. And so chanting that holy name, but also to give that very special and rarefied love that only exists in Braj, right? the love in the mood of the Brajbasis, and most rare, the love of the gopis, specifically those who are servants of Srimati Radhika. In other words, we are Rupanugas. Srila Prabhupada said it over and over. He even named one of his first and dearmost disciples Rupanuga. Very wonderful devotees, Rupanuga. I remember him so fondly. And that means, who is Rupa? Rupa Manjari. Rupa Goswami, who came to reveal the inner moods and access to the goal of becoming a Manjari under the direction of Rupa Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, Rati Manjari, Vilas Manjari, right? So, and we must go deep to uncover its meaning. Gauravani refers to that which Gaura preached and that which he inspired in the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami, the glorification of the mood of the gopis and Srimati Radhika. Sri Gaurachandra said, the mood of the gopis, right? Oh Nityananda, oh Haridas, go door to door and preach. Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Koro Krishna. Chant Sri Krishna's name, worship him, and serve him. This is Gauravani. It is also what Mahaprabhu discussed with Sri Roy Ramananda and Sri Sarup Damodar in the Gambhira. Right? After he returned to Puri, and after traveling throughout South India and preaching everywhere, and meeting Ramananda Roy at the Godavari, when he came back and Ramananda Roy came to visit him in his later years, he spent more and more time in this solitary place, especially in the evenings, in this Gambhira, this small room, and was going deeply, deeply into the moods of separation of Srimati Radhika. Right? And Ramananda Roy and Srup Damodar, who are Vishaka and Lalita respectively, would assist him in sharing and tasting these moods of Srimati Radhika's love, because they understand it. They are the dearmost assistants and friends of Srimati Radhika. In that regard, it is especially his hidden revelation of the meaning of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam, and Ashlishava Paruratam. This is Gauravani. So he's indicating here, going deeply into the 8 essential verses of Mahaprabhu, which contain in these almost like aphorisms the deepest understanding of his Manubhishta, of his teachings, what he came to deliver and share, and what he came to taste and offer to other living entities. It is also the love and affection explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Ujjvala Nilamani, Sri Vidagdha Madhav, and Sri Lalita Madhav. This is Gauravani. Right? In the beginning, we take Gauravani to mean his missionary mission, right? You know, the glorification of the holy name, Harinam Sankirtan. But within that Sankirtan, when Mahaprabhu would do collective chanting in the house of Srivas Pandit in Navadvip, what was happening? Each of those devotees who were chanting in the association of Mahaprabhu, in that name they were chanting, they were all experiencing their own specific ras, right, with Sri Krishna. And Mahaprabhu, when he was chanting, and he was experiencing the mood of Rasa Leela, the mood of the gopis with Krishna in that most refined, most beautiful, topmost pastime. And every devotee would be experiencing what was most dear to them in their heart with their Ishtadev, right? And all of that is revealed in Shikshashtaka. Srila Narayana Maharaj goes on to say, our entire Guru Parampara descended to this world from Goloka Vrindavan. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Thakur was one of the most prominent acharyas. If he had not come, everything would have been transferred into Sahajism, whereas all philosophy is wherein all philosophy is asat sampradaya, outside of the parampara line of philosophy, spiritual sentiments, and behavior. Right? If one is not serving his Gurudev, if he does not have strong belief in his Gurudev, and if he is not following his line of thought, such a person must be a sahaja. This is taking place nowadays. We are preaching, and therefore they are somewhat stopped. But I do not know what will happen after I leave this world. A very dangerous stage is coming. Srila Narayana Maharaj was well known for presenting these more confident, giving explanations of the more confidential writings of Rupa Goswami and others. But he always said, I have to give it in its proper context so that it can be understood by serious practitioners, especially in the West, right? At the same time, it's a dangerous thing to do because people will misuse it and become sahaja, but it must be done. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj had that same dilemma speaking in the later chapters, these confidential subject matters. What am I giving here? What if the camel-like non-devotees read this? What will they think? What will they say? What will they conclude? And he said, I hesitate to write this, but then I take solace in the idea that they can't really understand it, the camel-like devotees. Camel-like. Why I say camel-like? What is a camel? A camel is a gross beast, and he enjoys, Srila Prabhupada used to always say this as well, one of the camel's favorite foods is this thorny bush. And when they eat that thorny bush, it cuts their tongue. And the camel is enjoying the taste of their own blood. Chewing that bush, they're thinking, oh, it's so tasteful. But it's actually their own blood they're tasting. And similarly, they relate that to sex life, which, the male in that is losing their own blood. Seminal discharge, it's so difficult to make. It requires so much blood. And those who preserve it, they are nourishing their brain and their body in a very special way. So he said, camel-like people are people addicted to sense gratification. And I'd always heard that, but, I'd never seen a camel. I'd never seen a camel eating thorns or anything like that. But then I was living in Bombay in the late 70s. And very near to the temple in Juhu is a beach. And at that time, it was a very beautiful beach. Nothing was on it, just one hotel, one Hilton hotel, if you go out to the beach and face the ocean on the left, somewhat down. Otherwise, unobstructed walk for miles and miles. And then on the right was nothing as well. But they had some things for tourists. And they had one camel there. One guy had this camel. He'd give camel rides, right? And then one day I'm taking a walk, right, in the morning, and I see this camel there, and he's chewing thorns. I said, wow, there it is. And there it is, right? And somehow later in the day, I went back to the beach, and the camel was lying on the beach dead. They don't care about it. The owners, oh, he's dead. He just walk away. He's not going to do anything. And what was in his mouth? Thorns. To the last chew, the last thing he ever did, he was still chewing those dang thorns, right? So I thought, oh, that is a very good, expression of material life. Just trying to get that last bit of, impure taste and then dying, right? What a life. Camel-like, right? So, yeah, it's true what the camels do. So if one is not serving Gurudev, and this is another aspect of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada, he was such a strong guru, right? Such a powerful personality. Srila Prabhupada, said like an iron fist and a velvet glove. He had all these qualities, and he was so strong against sahajas and impersonalists and materialists. But he could also be very gentle and soft. But he himself was so humble, even though he took the role of acharya and was seen as so grand and worshipped with such reverence by his disciples, who were so grand and magnificent themselves, in talking about his own status of guru, he would be very humble and always expressing utmost devotion to his two gurus, to Srila Gaurkishoras Babaji Maharaj and to Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and completely following them, completely dedicated in every way. And he passed that mentality down to his magnificent disciples, who carried his work on and whose disciples are going on all over the world. Of course, our Srila Prabhupada, but so many other branches of that great limb of the Chaitanya tree from Sarasvati Prabhupada. So, Gurudev is warning Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaja that example of staunch belief and adherence to the teachings and guidelines given by Sri Guru, that's our only protection against falling into sahajism, material attachment, gross activity. So after our Srila Prabhupada left, he says many ISKCON devotees, even during his time, left Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, their guru, Srila Prabhupada, and they went to Radhakund. Yeah, some did. They wanted to remember Ashtakaliya Leela as gopis, not gopis, but gopis. And for this offense, they went to hell. They became so-called Babajis, keeping 2, 3, or 4 widows with them, and they began to relish their Parakya bhajan. I know not only 2 or 3 or 4, but so many. They want to jump, not to practice bhakti yoga. So that's our cheating propensity, that if we're not humble in the service of our guru and the service of the associates of our guru, his godbrothers and also his disciples, then our enjoying spirit will come forth and we'll use bhakti to fulfill that enjoying spirit. And he's saying, Srila Narayana Maharaj, she knew everything that was going on in Vrindavan. He was like the preeminent personality there. And there were. And also, among his own followers, that also happened. It happens with every generation that people say, oh, I just want Shuddhanam, I want my identity as a gopi, as a manjari, and so I don't need, my guru's given me Harinam, I'm just going to go there and chant. But they think they control Harinam and that Harinam is like some karma-kandic activity that if you do it, you must get the result. No, it's not like that. The benefit and the mercy of Harinam comes through the mercy of Guru and through cultivating the appropriate mentality of humble service, which Sarasvati Prabhupada taught by example and through careful instruction to his disciples. His chief disciples were all such hard-working, humble servants. So he says, they want to jump, not to practice bhakti yoga. They want to be gopis by paying 2 pennies to any bogus person who will give them siddha-deha, their perfected personal identity, and tell them, you are a gopi. Such persons will give a name and all other false information about that gopi. Then after some time, such disciples imagine themselves absorbed in Sri Sri Radha and Krishna's most confidential pastimes in the Kunja. Please do not try to be like that. Do not go in that direction. Because it's not real siddha-deha. Siddha-deha comes in a purified state. It awakens naturally and is confirmed and guided by your bhajan guru. Right? Bhajan means internal bhajan. Who's your chief shiksha guru. He may be your diksha guru. He may be one who is following in the same line as your diksha guru, who's giving you this further instruction. But if you do this in a false way, then your vision of your internal identity, it's a product of your mind. It's a material product. And what will result, imagining pastimes of Radha and Krishna created in the mind, will create lusty desires in the heart. It won't purify the heart. I know one individual who took sannyas from Srila Narayana Maharaj. And He had been in ISKCON before, and then he came, and he had very many high responsibilities, but he became attracted to Srila Narayana Maharaj, did a lot of very good service, but somehow or other, after Srila Narayana Maharaj left, he said, oh, he promised me Siddha Deha. He didn't give it to me. So then he went to one of these Babajis who promised it to him, and he began to follow that person and wasn't satisfied. Ultimately, he left entirely, rejected Bhakti, and went back to his former occupation, which was as a Christian preacher, which, okay, you might take a couple steps down the ladder, but he became virulently blasphemous of Gaudiya Vaishnavas and everything that he had been doing. I saw him on YouTube. It was horrifying what he was saying. Completely lost it. So, there are some ill-charactered persons who have been rejected from the Gaudiya Math, and they also went to Radhakund to become Babajis in the Asat Sampradaya. Such loose-charactered or unqualified persons imagine themselves absorbed in the Astakaliya Leela of Radha and Krishna in their midnight and end of the night pastimes. Right? At that time, Radha and Krishna are meeting in a kunja. If they are alone, half naked and kissing each other, what will the meditator think? Material ideas will come to him because that's all we have. We don't have purified senses, purified vision. Even hearing about these things in an unqualified state will create material ideas. So even speaking like this to illustrate to us that, it's a warning. He is bound to think in this way, and this is wrong. Sri Radhakrishna Leela is transcendental. Only a saintly person like Sri Shukadev Goswami, who was a brahmachari from his birth, or like Sri Narad Goswami, who was a liberated soul, or like Lord Shankara, who is an ideal personality, can properly think of Ashtakaliya Leela. You should offer pranam to such pastimes and try to practice bhakti yoga as our predecessor acharyas have taught us. Gradually, begin from the root of the tree, then be qualified to climb, and then reach the top. Then you can take the fruits. Otherwise, you will have nothing but these bogus ideas. Try to follow Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Prabhupada, our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, you will also be like those misdirected persons, and you will also go to hell. So he did this thing in the middle here, where he's stressing a very important aspect of the Manobishta and mission of Saraswati Prabhupada, to destroy the Sahajism, the materialistic conception of Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings. Now, there's a second half to this lecture of his life and stories, which we'll read tomorrow. All right, but we'll stop here. Okay, so there we are. Now, we'll end this, offering our grateful obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, our Guru Parampara, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.